Going public was not easy. Tay could not simply stand on the stage and announce his findings. Counselor Day had powerful friends who could make him disappear before the first word left his mouth. He needed protection, and he needed witnesses that even Day could not silence. Commander G arranged a meeting with the summit's remaining delegates. She called it an urgent security briefing, which meant everyone was required to attend. The meeting would be held in the main assembly hall, with cameras broadcasting to hundreds of planets across the galaxy. "This is risky," G said as she helped Tay prepare. "Once you speak, there is no going back. If Day's allies turn against you, I may not be able to protect you." "I understand," Tay said. "But this is bigger than my safety. This is about justice." The assembly hall was packed when Tay walked in. Delegates from every species filled the seats, their different faces watching him with curiosity and confusion. Why was a human guard addressing the Galactic Summit? Counselor Day was there too, sitting in the front row. His eyes were that cold gray again, but his face showed nothing. He looked calm, unconcerned. He did not believe that Tay could hurt him. Tay stepped up to the speaking platform. His hands were sweating, and his heart beat so fast he thought it might burst. But he remembered why he was doing this. He remembered Una falling. He remembered her eyes turning black. He remembered that she deserved the truth. "Distinguished delegates," he began, his voice stronger than he expected. "My name is Tay. I am a security guard on this station. I am no one important. But I have discovered something that everyone needs to know." He activated the display behind him. The video of Yuna's death appeared on the screen. The room fell silent. "Ambassador Yuna did not die of natural causes," Tay said. "She was murdered." Gasps filled the room. Delegates looked at each other in shock. Some shouted in protest. But Tay continued. "I know the investigators said her death was an accident. I know they found no evidence of foul play. But they were looking for the wrong things. They were looking for weapons and violence. They were not looking for this." He switched the video to the moment when Day touched Yuna's wrist. He zoomed in, slowed it down, highlighted the exact point of contact. 40 minutes before Ambassador Yuna died, Counselor Day touched her wrist. This touch delivered a toxin directly to her emotion gland. The toxin caused her body to shut down. It made her death look natural. It was the perfect murder. The room exploded with noise. Delegates were shouting, some in anger, some in disbelief. Day was on his feet, his eyes blazing. "This is absurd," Day shouted. "This human is lying. He has no proof." "I have proof," Tay said calmly. He displayed Dr. Bora's analysis on the screen. "This is a chemical analysis of Ambassador Yuna's clothing. It shows traces of a toxin that attacks the Myra emotion gland. A toxin that did not exist until Counselor Day created it." He showed the financial records next. "These are payments from Counselor Day to a chemist who specializes in biological compounds. The payments began 6 months before the summit. Then the request for a private laboratory. Counselor Day asked for a private workspace on this station. He claimed it was for personal research. I believe he used it to prepare the toxin." Finally, Tay showed the old records of the rivalry between Day and Yuna. 20 years ago, Counselor Day lost the position of lead ambassador to Yuna. Since then, her policies have destroyed his business and ruined his fortune. He had every reason to want her dead. Day's face had changed. The calm mask was cracking. His eyes shifted through colors rapidly, purple to gray to a dark, ugly red that Tay had never seen before. "This is madness," Day screamed. "You cannot prove any of this. You are a human, a nobody. Your species has been in the galaxy for barely a moment. How dare you accuse a Myra counselor of murder?" "I dare because no one else would," Tay said. I dare because Ambassador Yuna deserved better than a lie. I dare because the truth matters, no matter who speaks it. He looked directly at Day. You called humans weak. You said we are good for nothing but standing by doors and checking cards. But you forgot something about us. We never give up. We ask questions when everyone else has stopped. We look for answers when everyone else has moved on. We fight for justice, even when the fight seems hopeless. The room was quieter now. Delegates were listening, really listening. I am not asking you to believe me because I am human, Tay continued. I am asking you to look at the evidence. Let independent investigators examine the toxin. Let them review the financial records. Let them question Counselor Day under truth verification. If I am wrong, I will accept any punishment. But if I am right, then a killer has been walking free among you, and that cannot be allowed to stand. There was a long, heavy silence. Then the Myra delegation leader stood up. She was an old woman with silver skin and eyes the color of deep water. She looked at Day with an expression that mixed sorrow and anger. Counselor Day, she said, is any of this true? Day's mouth opened and closed. His eyes were still that dark red, but now there was something else in them. Fear. Real fear. I will not answer questions from a human guard, he said, but his voice was shaking. This is beneath my dignity. Then answer me, the Myra leader said. I am asking you directly. Did you kill Ambassador Yuna? The whole galaxy was watching. Cameras broadcast the moment to billions of viewers across hundreds of planets. There was no escape, no way to hide. Day's shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured balloon. She ruined everything, he said quietly. She took the position that should have been mine. She destroyed my business with her policies. She stood there smiling while my life fell apart. She deserved to pay. She deserved to suffer. The room erupted. Guards moved forward to take Day into custody. Delegates shouted in outrage and grief. The Myra leader closed her eyes, and tears ran down her silver cheeks. Tay stood on the platform, watching it all happen. He did not feel victorious. He did not feel proud. He only felt tired and sad. Ambassador Yuna was still dead. Nothing could bring her back. But at least now the truth was known. At least now she could rest in peace. Later, after Day had been taken away and the summit had been suspended, Commander G found Tay sitting alone on the observation deck. He was looking out at the stars, the same stars that Yuna had loved so much. You did it, G said, sitting down beside him. You found the truth. We did it, Tay corrected. You, me, Hannah, Dr. Bora. It took all of us. But you started it. You kept going when everyone else had given up. She looked at him with respect. The galaxy will remember this. They will remember that a human guard solved a mystery that fooled the best investigators in the universe. Tay shook his head. I do not want to be remembered. I just want to go back to my job. Standing by doors. Checking cards. Simple things. I do not think that will be possible anymore. G smiled slightly. You are famous now. Every species in the galaxy knows your name. Famous. Tay had never wanted fame. He had only wanted justice, but as he looked out at the endless stars, he felt something he had not expected. Hope. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were small and weak compared to species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. But today, Tay had shown that humans had something valuable to offer. Determination, curiosity, the stubborn refusal to accept easy answers. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was what humanity could give to the galaxy. The stars twinkled in the darkness, each one a sun with its own planets, its own civilizations, its own stories. And somewhere out there, beings would tell the tale of how a human guard cracked the case that changed history. Tay smiled for the first time in days. Underestimate, Humans at your own risk. The galaxy was only beginning to learn that lesson. Tay knew he could not go to the Galactic Security Force with his evidence. They had already closed the case. They would not listen to a human security guard who claimed to know better than their advanced scanners and computers. They would dismiss him as a fool or, worse, accuse him of creating trouble between species. He needed to be smart. He needed to build a case so strong that no one could ignore it. Commander G agreed to help, but quietly. She gave Tay access to more records and assigned Hannah to assist him full-time. The little Becca was nervous but excited. She had never been part of a real investigation before. "If we are wrong about this, we will lose our jobs," Hannah said as they worked late into the night. "If we are right, we will save lives," Tay replied. "This toxin exists now. If Day created it, he might use it again, or sell it to others. Imagine what would happen if this weapon spread across the galaxy." Hannah shuddered, her fur standing on end. "That is a terrible thought. That is why we cannot stop." They worked for 3 more days. Tay interviewed summit guests, asking careful questions that did not reveal his true purpose. He learned that Counselor Day had arrived at the station 2 days before the summit began. He had brought a large amount of personal luggage. He had requested a private laboratory for what he called personal research. A laboratory? Tay asked the station official who had approved the request. What kind of research? He said it was medical work. He's known to study microbiology. We saw no reason to refuse. A laboratory where a toxin could be created. Another piece of the puzzle. Hannah found financial records showing that Day had paid large sums to a chemist on a distant planet. The chemist specialized in biological compounds. The payments had started 6 months before the summit. Dr. Bora continued to analyze the toxin. She discovered that it could be absorbed through the skin in seconds. A simple touch was enough to deliver a fatal dose. The compound broke down quickly after use, leaving almost no trace. Only her careful testing of the fabric sample had found it. "This was designed by someone who understands microbiology perfectly," she said, "and who understands how to hide evidence from standard scanners. Could Counselor Day have this knowledge?" Tay asked. "He has studied biology for over 100 years. Yes, he could have this knowledge. Or he could have hired someone who did." The evidence was building. But it was still not enough. They had motive, they had opportunity, they had the weapon. But they did not have direct proof that Day had used the toxin on YUN. Tay decided to take a risk. He went to see Counselor Day. The Myra leader was staying in the diplomatic wing of the station, in a suite of rooms larger than Tay's entire living area. 2 guards stood outside his door, both of them tall, worn with hard shells and sharp claws. "I am Guard Tay," he said. "I would like to speak with Counselor Day about station security." The guards looked at each other. Then one of them went inside. After a moment, he returned and gestured for Tay to enter. Day was sitting by a window, looking out at the stars. His blue skin seemed darker in the dim light, and his eyes were a calm shade of purple. He did not look like a murderer. He looked like a tired old man. "A human guard," Day said, his voice smooth and pleasant. "How interesting. What can I do for you?" Tay had prepared his questions carefully. He could not accuse Day directly. That would be too dangerous. Instead, he would watch and listen and learn. "I am reviewing security for the remaining summit events," Tay said. "I wanted to ask about your experience at the summit. Were there any concerns? Any moments when you felt unsafe?" Day smiled slightly. "This station has excellent security. I felt safe at all times, even during the terrible tragedy of Ambassador Yuna's death." "You knew Ambassador Yuna well?" "We were old friends. We worked together for many years. Her death was a great loss. Day's eyes shifted to a darker shade of purple, suggesting sadness. But something about it seemed wrong to Tay. The change was too quick, too controlled. "I saw you greet her at the summit," Tay said casually, "just before she died. You shook her hand." For just a moment, something flickered in Day's eyes. Fear? Surprise? It was gone before Tay could be sure. "I greeted many people that night," Day said. "Yuna was one of them. We exchanged pleasantries. Nothing more, of course." Tay pretended to write something on his tablet. "One more question, counselor. Why did you touch her wrist?" The room went very still. Day's eyes changed again, shifting to a cold shade of gray. Tay had never seen that color before. He did not know what it meant. "I do not know what you are talking about," Day said. His voice was still pleasant, but there was something hard beneath it now. Something dangerous. The cameras recorded it. "When you separated from the handshake, your hand moved to her wrist. Just for a moment. A meaningless gesture. Perhaps I was adjusting my sleeve. Perhaps it was nothing at all." Day stood up slowly. He was tall, much taller than Tay. "You are asking very strange questions for a security guard, human. What is this really about?" Tay knew he should back down. He should apologize and leave. But something inside him pushed forward. "Ambassador Yuna did not die of natural causes," he said. "She was murdered. And I think you know something about it." The words hung in the air like ice. Day stared at Tay with those gray eyes, and Tay felt like he was looking at death itself. Then Day laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. "You are accusing me of murder? A human guard accusing a Myra counselor? Do you have any idea what you are saying?" "I know exactly what I am saying. You have no proof. You have nothing but wild theories and human arrogance." Day moved closer, his tall form casting a shadow over Tay. "Let me give you some advice, little human. Drop this matter. Forget what you think you know. Go back to standing by doors and checking cards. That is all your kind is good for." Tay did not move. He did not look away. "I will find the truth, counselor. With or without your help. The truth." Day's smile was cruel. "The truth is that humans are weak. You have been in the galaxy for only a few decades. You think you can play with species that have existed for thousands of years? You are nothing." Yuna thought she could change the galaxy with her speeches and her policies. Look where it got her. Dead on the floor, with everyone believing it was her own weak heart. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Walk away, human. While you still can." Tay stood his ground. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady. "Thank you for your time, counselor. I have learned what I needed to know." He turned and walked out of the room. His legs felt weak, but he did not let it show. He walked past the guards, down the corridor, and around the corner before he finally stopped and let out a shaky breath. Day had not confessed. But his reaction told Tay everything. The fear in his eyes when the wrist was mentioned. The threats when Tay pushed further. The arrogance when he dismissed humans as weak and worthless. Counselor Day was guilty. Tay was certain of it now, but Day was also dangerous. And now he knew that Tay was a threat. The clock was ticking. Tay needed to find proof before Day found a way to silence him forever. He hurried back to the security office, where Hannah was waiting with wide, worried eyes. "I think I made him angry," Tay said. "That is bad," Hannah replied. "What do we do now?" Tay looked at the evidence they had gathered. The footage, the financial records, the toxin analysis. It was enough to raise questions. But was it enough to bring down a Myra counselor? There was only one way to find out. "We go public," Tay said. "We tell everyone what we know." Hannah's search revealed many things about Counselor Day. He was 180 years old. middle-aged by Myra standards. He had served on the Galactic Council for 50 years. He was respected and powerful. He controlled the trade routes between the Myra homeworld and several mining colonies. But there was something else. Something that made Tay's heart beat faster. 20 years ago, Tay and Yuna had been rivals. They had competed for the position of lead ambassador, the highest honor a Mira could achieve. Yuna had won. Tay had lost. The record said he had accepted his defeat gracefully and supported Yuna's work ever since. That was 20 years ago, Hana said, reading the information on her screen. Surely he would not hold a grudge for so long. Humans have killed for less, Tay said quietly. But he is not human. No, but he is still a person. And people remember when they lose. They remember when someone takes something they wanted. Tay needed more information. He needed to talk to people who knew Tay and Yuna. He needed to understand the relationship between them, but he was just a security guard. Council members would not talk to him. They would laugh at his questions and send him away. He needed help from someone with more authority. Station Commander G was a human woman in her 60s. She had gray hair cut short and a face lined with years of hard decisions. She had commanded Station Omega for 15 years. Nothing happened on her station without her knowledge. Tay requested a meeting. He expected to wait days or weeks. To his surprise, Commander G agreed to see him that same afternoon. Her office was on the top level of the station, with windows that showed the stars in every direction. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Tay felt very small standing in that room. "Guard Tay," Commander G said, looking at him with sharp eyes. "You have been causing some talk. People say you do not believe the investigators' report. I have questions, Commander. Questions are dangerous things. They can lead to trouble." "Yes, Commander. But they can also lead to truth." G studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. "I like you, Guard Tay. You remind me of myself when I was young. I was also someone who could not leave things alone." She gestured to a chair. "Sit, tell me what you have found." Tay sat down and explained everything. The way Yuna touched her wrist before falling. The emotion gland that Dr. Bora had described. The footage of Counselor Day touching Yuna's wrist during their greeting. The old rivalry between them. Commander G listened without interrupting. When Tay finished, she was quiet for a long time. "This is not proof," she finally said. "This is not even close to proof. You have observations and guesses. Nothing more." "I know, Commander. But something is wrong. I can feel it. Feelings are not evidence." "No, but they are a starting point." G leaned back in her chair. "If you are right, you are accusing a powerful member of the Galactic Council of murder. Do you understand what that means? The Myra are one of the founding species of the Alliance. They have more influence than humans can imagine. If you are wrong, it could damage relations between our species for generations. And if I am right, a murderer will go free." The commander closed her eyes. Tay could see her thinking, weighing the risks against the rewards. "What do you need?" she asked. "Access to Counselor Day's communications and financial records. Permission to interview summit guests. And a toxicology report on Ambassador Yuna's body. The body has already been prepared for the funeral ceremony. The Myra do not allow outsiders to examine their dead." Tay's heart sank. "Is there nothing we can do?" "There might be one thing." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small container. Inside was a piece of fabric, silver in color. "This is a sample from Ambassador Yuna's sleeve. It was collected before the body was returned to the Myra delegation. I kept it because something about this situation bothered me too." She handed the container to Tay. "Take this to Dr. Bora. See if she can find anything unusual on it. But be careful. If anyone asks, I did not give this to you. Tay took the container with trembling hands. Thank you, Commander. Do not thank me yet. You may find nothing. Or you may find something that puts you in danger. She looked at him with serious eyes. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Why? Ambassador Yuna was not human. She was not your friend. Why do you care so much? Tay thought about the question. Why did he care? He was nobody. He had no power, no influence, no special skills. He was just a guard who stood by doors and checked identification cards. But that was exactly why he had to do this. Because no one else will, he said. The investigators closed the case. The galaxy has accepted the answer. If I do not look for the truth, no one will. And everyone deserves to have someone fight for them, even after they are dead. Commander G nodded slowly. That is a very human answer. Go, find your truth. But be careful. You are swimming in waters far deeper than you know. Tay left the commander's office and went straight to Dr. Bora. He gave her the fabric sample without explaining where he got it. She did not ask. Some questions were better left unasked. I will run every test I can, she said. It will take time. Toxins are not easy to find, especially rare ones. How long? A day, maybe 2. Be patient. Being patient was hard. Tay continued his normal duties, standing by doors and checking cards. But his mind was elsewhere. He kept thinking about Counselor Day, about the touch, about the motive. Why would Day kill Yuna after 20 years? What could push someone to murder after so long? On the second day, Hana came to him with more information. She had found something interesting in Day's financial records. He is losing money, she said, her whiskers twitching with excitement. A lot of money. His trade business is failing. Several of his mining colonies were shut down last year because of new environmental laws. Laws that Ambassador Yuna supported. Tay guessed. Yes, she was a strong voice for protecting planets from overmining. Many of Day's operations became illegal because of her work. The pieces were coming together. Day had lost the position he wanted to Yuna. Then, years later, Yuna's policies destroyed his business. He had 2 reasons to hate her. 2 reasons to want her dead. But motive was not enough. They needed proof of the method. They needed to find the toxin. That evening, Dr. Bora called Tay to her office. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. I found something, she said. Something that should not exist. She showed him the results on her screen. On the fabric sample, she had found traces of a chemical compound. It was not in any database. It was not known to galactic science. But its effects were clear. This compound attacks the Myra emotion gland, Dr. Bora explained. It causes the gland to release massive amounts of chemicals into the bloodstream. The body goes into shock. The hearts stop. Death follows within minutes. So it was not natural heart failure. No, it was murder. Someone created a weapon specifically designed to kill Myra in a way that looks like natural death. This is beyond dangerous. This is terrifying. Tay stared at the screen. He had been right. He had known something was wrong, and he had been right. But being right gave him no joy. It only gave him fear, because now he knew the truth. And the truth made him a target. Somewhere on this station, a murderer was walking free. A murderer who had created a weapon that could kill without leaving obvious traces. A murderer who had fooled the best investigators in the galaxy. And now, Tay was the only one who knew the truth. He needed to be very, very careful about what he did next. Tay did not sleep that night. He sat in his small room on the lower levels of Station Omega and thought about what he had seen. His room was tiny, barely big enough for a bed, and a small desk. The walls were gray metal. There was no window, no view of the stars. Guards like him did not get fancy rooms. He played the video again on his personal tablet. The quality was not as good as the security office screens, but he could still see what he needed to see. Yuna walking. Yuna stopping. Yuna touching her wrist. Yuna falling the wrist. It kept coming back to the wrist dot in the morning. Tay went to see Dr. Bora. She was the station's human medical officer. A woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her black hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. She had been on Station Omega for 20 years and knew more about alien biology than most professors. "You want to know about Myra Hartz?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," Tay said. "The investigators said Ambassador Yuna died from heart failure. I want to understand how that works." Dr. Bora studied him for a moment. "You are the guard who keeps watching the video. People are talking about you." Tay felt his face grow warm. "I just want to understand." The doctor smiled slightly. "That is a very human thing to say. Sit down. I will explain." She pulled up diagrams on her screen. The Mira body was different from humans in many ways. They had 2 hearts, one on each side of their chest. They had blood that was silver instead of red. They could live for 300 years if they stayed healthy. "Heart failure in Mira is rare," Dr. Bora said. "Their hearts are very strong. But it can happen, especially in older individuals. When it happens, it is sudden. There is no warning. The heart simply stops. What would a Myra feel when that happens?" Tay asked. "Pain in the chest. Difficulty breathing. Their eyes would change color as their body goes into shock. Black eyes mean the brain is not getting enough blood." Tay nodded slowly. This all matched what he had seen. Maybe the investigators were right. Maybe he was just a foolish human who could not accept a simple truth. But then he remembered the wrist. "Is there any connection between the heart and the wrist in Myra?" he asked. Dr. Bora frowned. "Not really. The wrist has blood vessels, of course. And the Mira have a gland there that produces certain hormones. But that gland has nothing to do with the heart." "A gland? What kind of gland?" "It is called the emotion gland. It releases chemicals that affect their mood and the color of their eyes. When a Myra feels strong emotions, the gland activates." Tay sat up straighter. "So if someone wanted to hurt a Myra, could they attack this gland?" Dr. Bora's eyes widened. "That is a dark question, young man. Why would you ask such a thing?" "Please, doctor. I need to know." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "In theory, yes. If someone introduced a toxin directly into the emotion gland, it could spread quickly through the body. The Myra immune system might not catch it in time, but such a toxin would need to be very specific. Very rare. I do not know of any that exist." Tay thanked the doctor and left. His mind was racing. He did not have proof of anything. He only had a feeling and a question. But that was enough to keep going. His next stop was the observation deck. The area where Yuna had fallen was blocked off with yellow tape. A few guards stood watch, but they knew Tay and let him pass. Being a fellow guard had some benefits. He knelt down where Yuna's body had landed. The floor had been cleaned, of course. There was no trace of the tragedy that had happened here. But Tay was not looking for blood or evidence. He was looking for something else. He closed his eyes and tried to remember everything about that night. Where had Yuna been standing before she walked forward? Who had been near her? Who had touched her? The summit had been crowded. Hundreds of people had moved through this space. Any one of them could have gotten close to Yuna. Any one of them could have touched her wrist without anyone noticing. Tay opened his eyes and looked around. There were cameras everywhere on the station. The investigators had reviewed the footage and found nothing suspicious. But maybe they had not been looking for the right thing. He went back to the security office. Hana was there, eating a small fruit that smelled like flowers. "You are still investigating?" she asked with a sigh. "I need your help," Tay said. "Can you access the camera footage from the summit? All of it?" Hana's fur bristled slightly. "That is not allowed. Only senior officers can access the full archive." "I know. But you are clever with computers. Cleverer than anyone else on this station." The little Becca's eyes sparkled with pride. She could not resist a compliment. "What do you want to see?" "I want to see everyone who got close to Ambassador Yuna in the hour before she died. Everyone who could have touched her wrist." Hana hesitated. Then she put down her fruit and cracked her small fingers. "This could get us both in trouble. I know. The investigators already checked this footage. They were looking for weapons or violence. I'm looking for something smaller. A touch, a handshake, a brush of fingers." Hana thought about this. Then she began typing on her keyboard. Her fingers moved faster than Tay could follow. Screens flickered and changed. Code scrolled past. "You humans are strange," she said as she worked. Other species would accept the official answer. They would move on. But you cannot let go. Is that a bad thing? I do not know. Maybe it is why humans are still alive. You do not give up, even when you should. The footage appeared on screen. Tay leaned forward and began to watch. The hour before Yuna's death was filled with activity. She had talked to dozens of delegates. She had shaken hands with leaders from many worlds. She had hugged old friends and greeted new allies. Everyone wanted a moment with the famous ambassador. Tay watched each interaction carefully. Most were normal. A quick handshake, a few words, then the person moved on. Nothing suspicious. Then he saw it. 40 minutes before Yuna's fall, a Mira male approached her. He was tall, like all Myra, with dark blue skin and eyes that shifted between orange and yellow. He wore the robes of a council member. According to the name tag visible on his chest, he was Counselor Day. Day greeted Yuna warmly. They clasped hands in the traditional Myra way, palm to palm, fingers interlaced. But as they separated, Day's hand lingered on Yuna's wrist. It was only for a second. Less than a second. But it was there. "Stop," Tay said. "Go back. Go back. Play that again." Hana rewound the footage. They watched again. And again. And again. "Do you see it?" Tay asked. "I see two Myra saying hello," Hana said. "Nothing strange." His hand. Look at his hand when they separate. Hana squinted at the screen. Her large eyes grew even larger. He touched her wrist. "But that is not part of the Myra greeting." "No," Tay agreed. "It is not." He did not know who Counselor Day was. He did not know why a Myra would want to hurt Ambassador Yuna. He did not have any proof that the touch meant anything at all. But he had found something the investigators had missed. A tiny detail. A single moment that did not fit. And that was enough to keep digging. Tay stared at the frozen image on the screen. Counselor Day's face was calm and friendly. He looked like a person saying hello to an old friend. He did not look like a killer. But Tay had learned something during his years as a guard. The most dangerous people often wore the kindest masks. "Who is Counselor Day?" he asked quietly. "I do not know," Hana admitted. "But I can find out." She began typing again. Somewhere in the station's vast database, answers were waiting, and Tay was determined to find them all. The Unity Summit was the biggest event in the galaxy. Every 10 years, leaders from hundreds of planets came together to talk about peace, trade, and the future. This year, it was held on Station Omega, a massive space station that floated between three star systems. The station was so big that it had its own weather. Clouds formed inside its glass domes, and small rivers ran through its gardens. Ambassador Yuna stood near the edge of the observation deck. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that seemed to glow under the station's lights. She was not human. She belonged to the Mira people, a species known for their wisdom and calm nature. The Mira had blue skin and eyes that changed color with their emotions. Right now, Yuna's eyes were a peaceful shade of green. She had worked for 30 years to bring different species together. Many called her the Mother of Peace. Wars had ended because of her words. Planets that once hated each other now traded and shared knowledge. She was loved by billions across the galaxy. The observation deck was filled with important guests. There were the tall, insect-like Vorn with their clicking sounds. There were the small, furry Becca who spoke in high voices. There were the stone-skinned Drow who moved slowly but thought deeply. And there were humans, still new to the galactic stage, watching everything with wide eyes. Tay was one of those humans. He worked as a security guard on Station Omega. It was not a fancy job. He stood by doors, checked identification cards, and made sure no one caused trouble. He was young, only 28 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. He had been working double shifts for the summit. Tay watched Ambassador Yuna from across the room. He had never seen Amira in person before. She looked almost like an angel from the old stories his grandmother used to tell. When she smiled, the whole room seemed brighter. The summit was going well. Leaders gave speeches about cooperation and understanding. There was music and food from 100 different worlds. Tay had never tasted so many strange things. Some were delicious. Some made him want to spit them out. But he kept his face calm and professional. Then it happened. Ambassador Yuna was walking toward the center of the deck. She was going to give her famous speech, the one she gave at every summit. People called it the Words of Unity. Millions would watch the broadcast across the galaxy. She took 3 steps. Then she stopped. Her hand went to her chest. Her eyes, which had been green, suddenly turned black. That was wrong. Tay had read about the Myra. Black eyes meant something was very, very wrong. Yuna's legs gave out. She fell forward, her silver hair spreading around her like a broken halo. She hit the floor hard. The sound echoed through the silent room. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. It was as if time itself had frozen. Then chaos erupted. People screamed. Guards rushed forward. Medical teams pushed through the crowd. Tay tried to get closer, but there were too many bodies in the way. He could only watch as doctors surrounded the fallen ambassador. A Vorn doctor clicked rapidly, its many hands moving over Yuna's body. A human doctor checked her pulse with shaking fingers. A Drow healer placed its stone hand on her forehead and closed its eyes. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the Vorn doctor stood up. Its clicking sounds were translated by a small device on its chest. "She is dead," the device said in a flat voice. The room went silent again. Then the crying started. Delegates from dozens of planets wept openly. The Becca made high, keening sounds of grief. Even the stone-faced droll seemed to crack with sorrow. Tay felt his own eyes grow wet. He had never met Ambassador Yuna. He had only watched her from far away. But he felt the loss like a punch to his stomach. The galaxy had lost something precious today. Within an hour, investigators arrived. They were from the Galactic Security Force, the best of the best. They had scanners that could detect a single molecule out of place. They had computers that could process 1 trillion pieces of information in a second. They were efficient, professional, and fast. By the next morning, they had their answer. It was an accident, the lead investigator announced. He was a tall Vorn with golden markings on his shell. Ambassador Una suffered a sudden failure of her primary heart. It is a rare condition among the Myra, but it does happen. There is no evidence of foul play. The galaxy accepted this answer. Una was old by Mira standards. She had worked hard for many years. It was sad, but it made sense. Hearts fail. Bodies break down. Even the greatest among us must die someday. Funeral arrangements began. A day of mourning was declared across 300 planets. Artists created beautiful tributes. Poets wrote sad verses. The galaxy prepared to say goodbye to its mother of peace. But Tay could not accept the answer. He stood in the security office, looking at the footage from that night. He had watched it 100 times already. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, the way his grandmother used to feel rain coming before the clouds appeared. He watched Una walk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, stop, hand to chest. Eyes turned black. Fall. What do you see? He whispered to himself. His partner, a friendly Becca named Hannah, looked up from her desk. She was small and covered in soft brown fur. Her large eyes blinked at him with concern. "You should sleep, Tay," she said in her high voice. "You have watched that video too many times." The investigators said it was natural. Why do you not believe them? Tay shook his head. I do not know. Something feels wrong. Look at her hand. He pointed at the screen. In the moment before Una fell, her hand went to her chest, but it also brushed against her wrist. It was a tiny movement, almost invisible. She touched her wrist, Tay said. Why would she touch her wrist if her heart was failing? Hannah shrugged her small shoulders. Pain makes people do strange things. It means nothing. Maybe, Tay admitted. But I want to know for sure. He knew he was just a security guard. He knew the investigators were smarter and had better tools. He knew that questioning their findings could get him in trouble, but something inside him would not let go. Something told him that Ambassador Una did not die by accident. Something told him that the truth was still hiding, waiting to be found. Tay took a deep breath and made a decision. He would find that truth, even if he had to search alone. The galaxy might have given up. But humans were known for one thing above all else. They never stopped asking questions.